Hello and welcome to the Black Cat Bushcraft channel. How many of you guys know and love the Morakniv Companion? This is the carbon model. What an excellent knife. It feels good in your hand, it cuts good, it comes razor sharp out of the box. What a pleasure to use. My first experience with the Companion style knife was the Morakniv Carbon Clipper, which had a different type handle than this, and then they upgraded to the Companion. And I've got several of those. I've got several of these. This one's actually new. I've got a HD that I've beat on a bit. But how many of you in using this knife, as much as you love it, have said, man, I just wished it was full tang, or I wished it had a 90-degree spine, or if it was just felt like a little bit more of a hard use bushcraft style knife? Well, if so, today we're going to take a look at one that meets all of those criteria and then some, and that is going to be the Battle Horse Knives Feather Stick, which if you look at the knives side by side, you can see that they're very reminiscent. They've got the same back curve to the handle, so they feel the same in your hand, same finger choil, the blade shape is very similar. There's just a few differences here that make this the more serious bushcrafting knife. And please don't take this as a cut against this knife, because this knife right here retails at what, $15 approximately? And this knife retails at beginning at $150. So we're talking 10 times the price. So you can do the math there. There's no cuts against this. This knife, for the way it's marketed and the price that's charged, is a steal. I'll never say anything bad about a Morakniv knife on that front, but this is a fantastic knife. This is one that you'll use and eventually, possibly wear out. This one's heirloom. This one, if you take care of it, it'll take care of your kids. Let's take a closer look at the Battle Horse Knives Feather Stick. Alright, I did want to say before I get started that this is not meant to be like a full-scale review of the Feather Stick, just a quick look at it. I have had this knife since late December, and I've not used it heavy as in batoning and that type of thing. I've really only used it for carving feather sticks, food prep, and things like that. So light bushcrafting tasks. I will say too that I paid full price for the knife back in December, and I'm not compensated in any way by Battle Horse Knives. Although I do like their company a lot, and I've owned many and own many of their knives and have found every one of them to be excellent in quality. If you've handled a Companion, you're familiar with the size and shape of this knife. This one's just quite a bit heavier. It is 1/8 01 tool steel. It has a 90-degree squared spine, and it has a Scandinavian grind. It is a 4-inch blade, and it's in excellent shape for bushcraft work, perfect size. I love this. This is just less than an inch right in here, so when you're trying to get up in those tight little spaces and do that notching and things like that, this knife excels at that type of work. All right, I'm not one of those people who batons my knife every time I go into the woods. I always carry a small axe, whether it be a small forest axe, wildlife hatchet, or something like that. There are times where it's beneficial. I know some people don't like the technique, but it's a technique and it works. This knife has not been batoned a whole lot, and I wouldn't really use it in that capacity. It can do it. It's a full-tang 01 tool steel knife, so it has no problems batoning. There's going to be no negative effects on this knife. You can see I'm not putting a whole lot of a lot of force behind those hits either. But to break down something like this tulip poplar to make feather sticks, it does a fantastic job. This piece has a little knot here. Not a problem. So it can definitely do those light batoning chores for crafts or for feather sticks or getting your fire started, building your kindling pile. All right, let's see if the feather stick can live up to its name. There's a piece of tulip poplar here. I'm sure the knife will do its part if I can do mine. It seems like the grind on this knife is slightly deeper than the Morakniv. So I have to be a little more light-handed to get those real fine curls like this. And in all honesty, you don't want too much of this fine stuff on your feather sticks because it burns up before you get your kindling ignited. So I'll start with that real fine stuff, hair-like feathers, and then run right into some deeper, more substantial cuts. But with a very soft touch, this knife does rip off that hair-like feathers. Tilt the blade. Kind of control those feathers a little better. It'll make them just as fine as you want to make them though. I'm barely putting anything on that. Just barely pushing against the wood. If I push, it bites really deep. So it really will hog off a lot of wood if you want to. With that light touch, you can create that very controlled, fine curl for your carving. Alright, whenever I look at my bushcraft knife, I'm always just as interested in the spine of the knife as I am the blade. Because honestly, I use the spine almost as much as I do the blade. It has to have that sharp 90-degree edge that I can use as a spoke shape for processing material, like this fat wood here. And this spine absolutely does a fantastic job. With very light pressure, I'm able to create that fine dust, process it down, and use that to ignite fire. So now I have that small collection of fat wood that I can use with a ferro rod and definitely get my fire started. One other thing that I always like to consider with my bushcraft knives is how do they feel in my hand in different grips. By design, this knife naturally prefers to be held as a hammer grip. And that's the way you use it most of the time, cutting away from your body. However, if you turn it into a reverse hammer grip, it's very comfortable this way too. And the reason is your index finger knuckle bites into that choil. And this handle naturally kind of tapers as it goes down to the blade, which is not a thumb scallop, but it kind of serves that same purpose. It has that same feel. And for things like a chest lever cut, the knife gets very solid traction in your hand, and you can make those deep cuts where you want to pull off the most amount of wood at one time or be safe in camp working around others. I know that you could easily choke up on this blade and use it like a scalpel if you were skinning or things like that. But this is a good bushcraft knife, and it does feel very comfortable in all of those different grips that I utilize in the field. This isn't a perfect piece of wood, but let's carve a quick tent stake. Just use that rocking motion there, get my stop cut started. And in my mind, these bushcraft notching tasks, stuff like that, that's really what this knife is meant for, what it excels at. It's harder than I expected it to be. See how it does a good job of getting up in there and cleaning up that notch. That thinner blade like that, which is where those Moras excel so much. It's not a perfect tent steak, but just to show you the knife in action, that's my goal. So in my mind, these are the kind of chores that this knife was really designed for. Bushcraft notching, processing, fine carving, things like that. That's where this size knife really excels. And this knife does excel at those tasks. Alright, well I appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in for this quick look at the Battle Horse Knives Feather Stick. It definitely lives up to my expectations. It's a knife I really enjoy and I'm glad to own it. It even works well as a food prep knife, which any bushcraft knife should. I appreciate you guys being here. I look forward to talking to you with another video as soon as possible. Till then, take care. God bless.